Hey Harmonizers, welcome to the horse auction. I am taking you behind the scenes. I haven't been to one for many years, but I wanted to go check it out. So come around with me and I'll share some tips and tricks. This is me with a bidding number just in case. And here's a little behind the scenes action. This is a totally different area than where the horses will come, but it shows you what a pig area for the auction looks like, or this is where the cows would come in. And then there's the bleachers on the sides where people can sit, as well as the doors to go in and out, which makes for great little playgrounds for kids to play with while they're waiting around. And here's a little look at some horses in the pens of the viewing area. And there's a whole tack sale area as well. So when going to the auction, if you're going to seriously buy, I recommend arriving early so you can check out things and knowing what to bid on. A lot of it was used tack and I didn't bid on any of that. I was more interested to take a look at the horses. I was also interested in the food, and I will recommend that they did have delicious hot dogs and pea meal and bacon and egg on a bun, which was absolutely fantastic. And then now we're going to take a closer look at the horses. And auctions are such an interesting place because there can be a lot of emotional feelings that come up about, are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? And you can see that some of the horses are stressed and kind of pacing around. And then some of the horses are actually quite calm and standing still. However, there are no guarantees. You don't know, were some of these horses given some helpful drugs to sedate them a little bit while they're here? We don't know that. There is no health guarantee or vet supervising all that kind of stuff. So you just have to go off of knowing your instinct, your gut, what to look for, all of those pieces. And this is the little booklet that you get of the horses with their very brief descriptions. So it basically just says who is the person that's selling them, the age, it says usually the breed or the guess of the breed, and just one or maybe two sentences about the horse. As well, sometimes it might list their height or approximate height, but there really isn't a lot of information. There's no history. It's more information than when I choose a Mustang, I can tell you that, but there's really not a lot of information there, and none of it is fact check. So you really have to go off of trusting what's going on. Now, behind the scenes, what does it look like before the bidding happens? Well, there's this little riding area where people can ride their horses around and kind of show a little bit of what they're doing. There's definitely a lot of kids riding without helmets. So shout out if you are participating in these events and you don't have a helmet on your child or even yourself. I super recommend that you put one on. Coming from somebody who had a bad accident, which was not the horse's fault. They got spooked by something else out of my control, and ended up fracturing my skull even with a helmet on. I totally recommend that you always have a helmet because you never know if it might not be your fault. Horse might get spooked, you might fall, you might fracture your skull, and thank goodness I was wearing a helmet. Otherwise, 100% I would probably be dead. So anyways, back to the auction. Totally recommend having a helmet on, but look at this. You see some of the groundwork, the horse following their human around. You see the child riding the pony around, which looks to be a pretty calm pony. You see, this is now the rider coming up on this blue roan, and I was super intrigued by the blue roan because I do find blue roans pretty attractive, but that's not really why I was there. I was more interested in going to an auction. I've never been to one since I was, I think, a teenager was the last time I went. So we're not going to talk about exact years, but that's roughly like 20 years ago. So it's been a very long time. And also, if there was a horse that looked like it needed a soft landing and wanted to come and maybe be trained and be part of our lesson program, I would be happy to do that. And this is the outdoor area where we get to see horses riding around or doing different things like pulling carts. This is literally in the parking lot. You can see a whole bunch of trucks and trailers that are all lined up. It was pretty busy and packed. And of course, it had had a lot of rain, so there's lots of puddles around. And not everybody brought their horses out. Some horses literally just stayed in the pens and you never even saw them like walking around. But there were some horses that came out and were pulling carriages, or they were being ridden around. Some were trotting, some were walking, showing different abilities and skills as they're going around. And it was just nice to see the horses going and kind of seeing what they're up to. And I definitely can understand for the horses that this would be a pretty stressful situation, especially if they had never been to a show or anything like that. This blue roan that we're watching going around here, I was told he'd only been under saddle, I think it was for a few weeks. So he didn't have that many days of riding training. So this would all be new. And then I saw this little face and my heart melted. He just looked like he was kind of sad and wanting to have a home. And I thought, okay, I'm going to keep that in mind. I was looking around at the other horses walking by, reading their age. This is a cute little 2-year-old Fjord, which was adorable to see. And then there were also some older ponies, noting how quiet they are and good with children. There was a real variety of horses that were there. There were large ponies, there were large horses like draft horses, Belgians. There was quarter horse crosses. This little guy here, this was a 2-year-old registered quarter horse that they had done basic training with and were really showing off how calm and chill this horse is, doing the tarp flapping. I'm surprised, I'm glad nobody else was in the arena at the time because that could be scary for a lot of horses. So they definitely showed off the skills of that horse. And for me, a 2-year-old horse, not something that I want to bring into my program. I don't like to get them riding until they're a little bit older, although it looked like they were doing things pretty slowly and cautiously. This was another little horse that caught my attention for a potential of going into the lesson program. One of the things that I recommend if you're going to go to an auction and you're going to look at a horse is you want to see the horse going both left and right, and you want to assess does that horse look like it could handle the task of whatever it is that you're wanting them to do. This horse, when I'm watching it go around, I noticed that it's turning its nose the opposite direction and it steps a little short in one of the hind legs. So that could indicate an issue. You want to look for even stepping both left and right. Of course, this is on a gravel driveway. It's not great footing. It's not, beautiful arena sand footing. So that could be something different. However, if the hind leg consistently isn't stepping under, then it could be something more of an issue going on. So if you look at that left hind leg is just not always stepping quite under, not evenly with the other hind leg. It just steps a little bit short. So it's an interesting thing. You can let me know in the comments if you can notice what I'm talking about. So I was looking at the other horses. Now, as we're watching this horse go around, I'll just bring up auctions again. They have this interesting emotional conversation of, are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? Because their horse is going through auctions. You don't really know if the buyer is going to be the right fit for the horse. So there's a lot of unknowns. And so there's a lot of things to consider. One is that a lot of the horses that were coming through are from the Amish community who don't participate on social media or the internet. So this is like for them the best way to sell their horses because they don't have the same social networking online to be able to post their horses for sale and things like that. It's different. So this is an easier way for them. There's also some people who have been trying to sell their horses or they're short on hay this year. And they literally wrote that on their notes for some of them that they're short on hay because we had a bad hay summer to get our hay in. And so it's an easier way for them to be able to sell their horses, and instead of trying to sell them privately where they might run short on hay and then the horse isn't getting all the feed and nutrition that they should be getting, instead they can get into a new home quicker. There's another benefit of you get to see multiple horses going around like this. So on one day, we got to see several horses going by rather than if you go out individually to look at all these horses, it could take hours and hours and hours, especially if they're all in different locations. It can take a lot more time. So as a buyer, especially if you're a buyer that tends to buy without a pre-purchase exam or a vet exam, then that would be similar to this, but you get to see tons of horses in the environment. And so it might be more time efficient for you. And so more people, you can reach more buyers, more networking. Now, there's also the concern that comes up about, okay, well, what about, are these horses going to end up going to slaughter, going for meat? And look at this gorgeous Frisian cross that's in there. So there's a huge variety. Like we've got a Fjord and we've got a Frisian cross. So we've got some beautiful horses coming through. And that's definitely a concern that a meat buyer could be there. However, as the auction was going on and happening, the horses were going for really high prices that were higher than what meat value would be. And this is an auction in a very big horse area with a lot of horse people, a lot of horse trainers, and it was well advertised. So it's a lot of horse riding people that were there, all looking for various different things with a lot of horse knowledge. So I believe that none of these horses ended up going for meat or slaughter. And if anything, this would be an opportunity for some of those horses to have an opportunity at a home as opposed to being sent on a meat truck, because it is an unfortunate reality that horses can be shipped off for slaughter. But I don't think any of that happened based on the prices. So this horse comes in the dark bay that I was watching go around and do the cantering outside, and I did bid on him. So there's these two people that are standing in the ring that are looking for people that are bidding, and then he sees me. Yes, I took a bid. And then they check for other bids, looks at me to check if I'm going to do another bid, and they're like, are you going to bid or not? And you have to kind of lift your hand to acknowledge that you're going to do a bid. And they definitely try to encourage you to bid more, but the price ended up going too high for me. I had a cap of, I think I went to about $2,400 bidding on that horse. And I wasn't prepared to spend more than that, but also for a couple of reasons. One is if I'm going to buy a horse for more than that, then typically I want to go test them out. But also when they're selling for more than that, I really don't worry about them ending up in a bad situation, because generally, if somebody spends a decent amount of money on their horse, they probably have the funds to be able to care for that horse as well, and they probably want that horse. This was another one that I bid on as well. She's a thoroughbred mare that already had some jumping experience and doing courses, so I thought, oh, that could be a good fit for our lesson program. So I did do a bid, and it kept bouncing back and forth, and then the bids got up higher than what I wanted to spend. She was a horse that was smaller than what I would typically have been looking for. But again, I was in the right place, right time. So I did put some bids on her. But no, I did not win this bidding because the prices went higher than what I was prepared to go in this situation. Now, another thing to talk about while she's walking around there is that it is a lot of horses coming from a lot of different places, and you don't know the histories. You don't know, there's no like vaccine checks or Coggins tests or anything like that. So definitely after being at an auction, I totally recommend that you go home, you strip down, you put everything in the laundry, even your coat, you put it in the laundry, your hat, your gloves, just in case there was something being passed around. You never know. All of the horses looked healthy to me in the sense of I didn't see any snotty noses. I didn't see anybody coughing. So I don't have that fear in particular, but you just never know. So we definitely did that, where I came home, showered everything, and showered myself and put everything in the wash is an important thing to do. Here's another little quarter horse going around with the tarp, and they're doing double riding to show how well the horse did. And I did win the bid on this mare, but interestingly enough, she came in as number, I think it was 46, as a 12-year-old. And then it ended up being a standard bred that was much older because they had the wrong number on her. So unfortunately, then that didn't go through because it was not the right horse. But I was pretty excited that I was going to be bringing home this fine, sweet girl. Took my daughter over and we're like, hey, you're going to have a good home. But then it didn't work out because they had the wrong tag on her. But all in all, I think it was a good experience. But let me know what you think in the comments. And about this little 2-year-old that my heartstrings were pulling on to bid on, I was definitely going to, except for he ended up going for way over $2,000. So I'm pretty sure he ended up in a good home. Let me know your thoughts. Remember to subscribe and check out harmonyhorsemanship.com for even more learning.